The only strategy you will ever need to stop dreading family reunions, I'll teach you today. My name is Dr. Ruben Gagarin. I'm your favorite family psychiatrist. Let's dive in. How come some people have such a hard time dealing with family reunions? That is because of discrepancy, how we see ourselves now as grown-up successful people and how our family sees us as little children whose opinion doesn't matter. It is like a time machine that brings us back in time, uncovering old wounds and old conflicts. We can see through time how it was when we were growing up, maybe even before we were able to speak and analyze what is happening. You probably know very many coping strategies. The problem with coping skills is that you have to wait until you get triggered and experience a certain emotion, so you have an opportunity to practice your skill to deal with it. What I suggest you do is to practice emotional distancing, not to be cold and uninvolved, but to distance yourself to a certain degree so you don't get triggered in the first place. There are certain visuals that can help to understand what I'm talking about. My favorite one is to imagine that you're a scientist, anthropologist. You are studying a new tribe. You don't know anything about them, but you enter in the tribe and you are part of the family gathering, so you're just collecting the information and trying to understand what this is all about. You not only observing other people at the table, but you're also observing your own response to them as if you're part of it, but also somewhat distant. A second image is more distant. You imagine yourself observing your family through a one-way mirror. You can see them, they cannot see you, therefore, no matter what they do, they cannot get to you. Similarly, you can imagine being surrounded by invisible protective wall. Same idea, you can see them, they can see you, but there is a barrier that protects you from other people and from triggers. The other image I like is of a gardener who has to protect their beautiful garden, so they created a boundary, a fence around their garden. Not a brick wall as a barrier, but a boundary, a fence. And there are gates that the gardener may decide to open to let in whoever and whatever they want. Let's elaborate on these images. If you imagine yourself being a scientist, you would probably want to pay a lot of attention to little details. Who said what reactions it elicited in other people, and what emotions it triggered in you. So you can take mental notes or even jot down some physical notes. For example, something like 6:15, Uncle James yet again talking about politics. It causes some emotions in me and I want to argue with him, but I can't. And at the same time, I cannot imagine that this person who taught me how to fish all of a sudden sounds like misogynistic racist. I feel this emotion, but I'm just a scientist. I cannot interfere with the dynamic of the tribe, so I have to sit with my emotion and almost like ride it as a wave, let it rise, and then eventually it will subside, so I can continue to pay attention. Of course, there are going to be positive notes. Maybe your cousin Rachel shared a funny story, something happened at work or what have you. But nonetheless, the image of a scientist helps you to take little notes and pay a lot of attention to dynamics. Who is a protector? Who is instigator of the conflict? Who is trying to create a balance within the family? The image of one-way mirror I don't exactly like because it puts too much distance. It's as if though you are not involved at all, and if you keep that image in your mind, you might come across as if you're cold and uninvolved with the family, and you also cannot really experience some of the positive warmth that may come from some of your family members. But if you need to protect yourself with a solid barrier, well, do what you have to do. I like the image of a gardener because it brings up a notion of boundaries as opposed to barriers. Why do we need personal and psychological boundaries? That is actually to help to establish consistent, long-lasting relationships. Boundaries, essentially, it's a rules of engagement, something that is appropriate to bring up and discuss, and something that you don't feel comfortable talking about. So you protect your boundaries like a good gardener, so you can continue to take care of your beautiful garden, keep away bad influences, but then when you see a delivery of fertilizer, then you open the gates and let it in. So it is not only to take care of yourself, but once you took care of yourself, then you can engage with the rest of the world and maybe even share some of the seeds from your garden so the other people can establish their own. If one erect barriers that distance themselves too much, they may feel lonely and isolated from others, and that is also not exactly very healthy. I use emotional distancing and protecting my boundaries every day in my line of work. My patients come for help with very strong emotions, anxiety, depression, even anger. And when they talk to me, it feels as if they direct this anger at me, but they cannot be angry at me, we just met. So I place my mind almost in the middle of the space. I'm observing my patients, but I'm also observing myself. If they express anger at me, I naturally respond with defensiveness. But I don't react. I kind of let this wave subside, and then I take some supportive steps. Because if I react with my defensiveness, I'm probably going to add to the problem as opposed to help. And I protect my boundaries like a good gardener, not only to protect myself, but actually to be the most helpful and empathetic as I can. Because if I experience the same emotions as my patients, if I also feel angry, depressed, or anxious, I actually cannot be very helpful. I cannot listen, I cannot pay attention to what they're saying, and therefore I can't really be very empathetic. So I use these strategies in my work all the time, so I don't have to think about any particular coping because I'm already protected from the get-go. So you attended the family gathering, you played the scientist, you paid a lot of attention to family dynamics, the words, the feelings, what you experience, what other people experience, their roles in the family. So now you have all of this scientific information, you took notes, and maybe you jot something down on a paper. But you may find yourself still ruminating in little loops about who said what and how you felt and what was your response. What I suggest you do is actually get it out of your head and write it down on the paper. Even if you had never journaled before, this time you might want to, and this is why. You can also use this opportunity like a time machine. You take yourself back, maybe as far as when you were a little baby, and you can imagine your parents when you were in your crib. See, although we do change over time, but not all that much, you can imagine how your parents treated you when you were a helpless little baby. Did they pay enough attention to you? Did they change your diapers when you needed to? Did they feed you on time? Or maybe they followed some misguided advice and let you cry it out until you became hopeless and depressed. Or maybe they were too anxious. Maybe they were there all the time, not leaving you any space to explore, almost suffocating you, so you had to rebel later on when you became a kid or a teenager. There is actually a lot of material that you can uncover from just one family reunion. And then next year, when you attend again, you can sort of test more theories. Did you get it right? Now you can ask yourself a question. What did I write last year and what am I writing now? You even review your journaling notes before next family reunion to prepare yourself what may happen next. This holiday season, I encourage you to be compassionate and love your family. This time, however, put a little bit of emotional distance. Draw some boundaries around yourself to protect your garden. That way, you don't get hurt and you don't accidentally hurt anyone else. Enjoy your holidays. Thank you very much for watching. Come back for more. Thank you. Bye-bye.